So I want to take you for a moment to a place where most people don't want to go. I know this is kind of a strange subject to be talking about, but I promise you we're not going to stay there long. I want to take a trip to the cemetery with you and point out some things. Um, we've all walked through cemeteries. Obviously, what's on a tombstone is, a birthday, death date, maybe a marriage date, perhaps a reference to a person's military service, possibly an epitaph. Which brings me to let's lighten the mood a little bit, shall we? I came across some, to me, rather funny epitaphs. So I think my favorite is this: "Here lies an atheist, all dressed up and no place to go." Another one said, "Oh no." Another one said, "I won't be right back. Thank you very much." Another one is, "Plot for sale. Come and join me. It's a quiet neighborhood." And the other one is, "The shell is still here, but the nut is gone." I kind of like that one. Anyway, when we walk through the cemetery, there are tombstones that are intact, but many of them, they're so weathered, you can't read the name, you can't read anything. They might be broken, they might be knocked over, vandals might have taken over the place. We don't even know who those people are. We don't know their story. We don't know any of that. I'd like to tell you one quick story before we leave the cemetery about a tombstone that really got to me and actually helped me to go get one step closer to writing a memoir. There's a program in the States called Wreaths Across America. And every Christmas holiday, people take beautiful green Christmas wreaths and put them on the graves of veterans. And the purpose is to show them honor, to show them respect, and to teach people. So they really encourage people to take their children and grandchildren to the cemetery that day to honor their veterans, to tell stories if they know that veteran, and to show respect for the sacrifices that they made in order for us to have our freedom. So in 2019, I took my granddaughter, and after we laid wreaths at a couple of veterans' graves, we took a stroll through the cemetery. And we came up on a family plot, and it was, pretty square. And it was lined by a concrete little border. It wasn't very high, but it was a fairly good sized family plot. Now, right next to it, outside the plot, was a grave with the person had the same last name. And the inscription was "Loved Anyway." Loved anyway. I thought, my goodness, even in death, this person is kind of part of the family, kind of not. They're a little bit marginalized. They want to honor them. And I thought to myself, what in the world is that story? What happened here? And I have no idea. And unless that story was written, it will be forgotten. My own approach to writing a memoir is unique. Even my publishing company said this is quite different from the norm, and they liked it. And it was proven to be a good approach because my book became an international bestseller. And let's stop for just a moment. I want you all to do an exercise. I want you to take out a piece of paper right now, or a note app, or whatever you have. I want you to put a line down the middle of the paper. And on the left side, I want you to write down the 4 things in life that you value the most outside of your family, beyond your family, other than your family. What is important to you in this world? What means the most to you? Write down 4 things. And on the other side, I want you to write down 4 things that you want to be remembered for. Now, whether you've accomplished those things or not, just write them down, okay? So I'm going to give you a couple minutes here to do that. And after we do that, then I will After you do that, then I'll share with you some more thoughts. Okay, how many of you found this to be a difficult exercise? Raise your hands. It's actually harder than you might think. But I really, really want you to dig deep. I want you to leave this paper out for the next 3 or 4 days. And I want you to think long and hard about these things. Because I want you to dig deep because it's a treasure worth finding. Because it will really help you. Let me share with you the 4 things that I came up with. Let me just share a little bit with how this helped me. So my 4 things are travel, adventure, service to God, and service to country. And before I kind of identified these things in a more formal way, before I realized this in a more formal way, I often felt like a round peg in a square hole. How many of you ever felt that way? I thought, why can't I just be like everybody else and just get a 9-to-5 job that's boring? And you work it for 20 years, you retire, then maybe if you're lucky, you'll get to live the life you want to live. That sounded like death to me. I said, no, thank you. And for example, let's take the one of the 4 that actually informed me of what I want on my tombstone is this. I feel like a life without adventure isn't worth living. And so I told my kids what I want on my tombstone is yet another adventure. Now, one thing that, you might say to yourself, well, I'm too young to think about these things. But my comment about that is, why not figure out what's important to you now? Therefore, you can make some mid-course corrections if you're not on the path you want to be on in life. And what I share the rest of this speech will hopefully help you in that direction. So my unique approach to writing a memoir is this. I thought to myself, who's going to read my memoir? Nobody knows me. They'll look at my name, and the first thing they'll say is, how do you pronounce that name? It's Scipio. The second question is, who the heck are you? We never heard of you, right? So other than my family, friends, if I write a memoir, who's going to read it or buy it beyond that? And so I came up with this idea that your memoir needs a theme. And the theme that I came up with, because it's so very important to me, is this. Never, ever, ever give up on your dreams, ever, no matter your age. And so I called my memoir Dream On. The alarm clock of your life hasn't gone off yet. So when somebody picks up my book, it's going to be more relevant to them, not just about me. So essentially, I wrote 2 books in one. So one chapter is an inspirational chapter that talks about my life and my experiences. I've done humanitarian work all over the world. I've been to so many different countries. I've been to so many places and done so many things. So my inspirational chapters are titled by the country where I served. So I talk a little bit about the geopolitical background. I talk a little bit about the issues facing that nation. I talk about the mission, like why were we there? What was my contribution and so forth. One of the chapters, for example, is about my service in the Peace Corps in Botswana. I joined the Peace Corps at the age of 60. And I worked there for 2 years working on the AIDS pandemic. My inspirational chapters are followed by an instructional chapter. In there, because you'll read my book and you say, well, that's great for you. You fulfilled your dreams, good for you. But what about me? And so every other chapter is instructional. I tell you how to come up with a dream, how to keep your dreams alive, and action steps that you can take to actually fulfilling your dreams. So what I love about this approach is that I try to make my life relative to yours and my experiences relative to yours. You know, they say that nobody really cares about our experiences unless they can relate to them. For example, even this speech today, you know, you're not really going to listen, or you're not going to, you know, take any of the information with you if it's really not relevant to your life. So I'm trying to do that. So my book is basically an inspirational chapter, inspire you, followed by an instructional chapter where I say, this is how you do it. So a person will pick up my memoir not to read about my life only, but to read about how you too can fulfill your dreams. Also want to share with you how important that my memoir became to my family, to myself and my family. When I handed my son my completed book, he was so proud that his mother had actually written and published a book. I was in my 70s when this happened. And he looked at me, he says, you know, he says, even if you never leave anything to me in terms of material possessions, I'll always have this, and I consider this book your legacy. And I'm going to put it on my desk, and when people ask me about it, I'll be able to tell them about your amazing life. And he's told me that a couple times. He says, Mom, your legacy is your book. And so he's really took that to heart and appreciated it. Secondly, one of the reasons I wrote my book was for my grandkids. I don't know about you, but it's really hard to talk to your grandkids these days. They all have their noses in the phone. You know, if you're sitting in a restaurant, you might see a table full of young people. Let's say there's 4 of them. All 4 of them have their noses in their phone. They're not even talking to each other. They might even be texting across the table from each other. You try to have a conversation and their answers are all very cryptic, you know. How's school? Great. How you feeling? Fine. What are you doing? Nothing much. You know, the answers are cryptic. It's almost like they've lost the art of conversation. And the thing that kind of hurt more than anything for me was I took care of my 2 grandkids for a whole year while their father was deployed in the military. And that whole year, only one time did they ever ask me about my life. And that was somewhat hurtful. And I've lived a very amazing, interesting life. So I thought, you know what, they're not interested right now, but someday they'll want to know more about me. So that was a real inspiration for writing the book. And in most people, when they write a dedication to their book, it's pretty short, it's pretty cryptic, usually 1 or 2 or 3 lines. Mine is like a page and a half long, and I'm addressing different people. And here's what I wrote to my grandkids. In the years ahead, you may want to know more about your heritage. May you come to know my heart and my life through the stories in this book. Much love, Grandma Connie. And I made another entry. I made a very personal note to my descendants not yet born. And here's what I said. You never knew me, but I hope my story inspires you. This book will give you a glimpse into the world in which I lived. Always remember who you are, a Sepal and a child of the Most High God. Because my thought is in the future, our kids, our grandkids, and those who come after us, they're going to have times they're going to want to give up on their dreams too, just like we're tempted to do at times. And it's just amazing. But, that book will be there, that they can pick it up. Hopefully my life can inspire them, and your life can inspire them to keep on trucking and to take some of the lessons you learn in life and perhaps apply them.